debt snowball works like this. You take all of the debts that you have, and all of us have some kind of debt, you know, credit cards, lines of credits, personal loans, car loans, overdraft protection. Gather all of your debt instruments, okay? Get the latest statements, right? Take a felt pen, a red felt pen, and circle the interest rate. If it's not clear what the interest rate is, call them up. Okay? Sometimes some of these documents, there's so much legalese, you don't even know what the interest rate is. If it's not clear, call them up, find out, speak to someone. What am I paying? What is it costing me annually in terms of interest? And put the interest rate down, okay? That's the first thing you're going to do. Gather your instruments, latest statements, okay? First thing you do, after you've gotten all the interest rates, is you call up the institutions, okay? Every one of them. And say, look, I'm paying 19% on my visa here, okay? I'd like you to reduce it. You know, what kind of lower rates do you have? Okay? Most, like the big financial institutions, have got at least a slew of 10 to 25 different kinds of credit cards, right? So just call them and say, look, I'm paying, and I just realized that I'm paying 19% on my credit card. I'd like you to give me one with a lower interest rate. What's the lowest you have? Okay. Now, if you've been a good customer paying your minimum payments on time and whatnot, there's no reason why they wouldn't switch you or even move it down, okay? And do it with a veiled threat that if you don't give it to me, I'm going to take my business to your competitor, that kind of thing, all right? Now, you'd be surprised that in 50% of the time, they will reduce the rate for you, okay? So here you are, been paying 19%, and suddenly they're going to reduce it to 11%, or if they have a 4.99% one, they'll say, sure, we'll switch you. We'll just change everything over, just roll everything over to that. It's silly, but that's the way it is, you know? So that's the first thing you do. And then the second thing you do is you arrange them after you've renegotiated, and you know, like it's worth a phone call, because the worst that they can say is no. And if they say no, you're not worse off. You're still where you are, right? And if they say yes, you just rearrange your package there, because one that was 19, you move it down. Now it's no longer 19. You follow? So it's worth the effort. So once you've done that, then what you're going to do is you're going to list all of these debts in 4 columns. Now this process is called the reverse debt snowball, and there's a reason for that. Because the way people accumulate debt is the way a snowball is built. Very little, okay? It just builds up. One, you know, you are a student at university, they give you a credit card for $500 because you're a student and you don't have much money. And then as soon as you get a job, they increase it to $1,000. And then you take a mortgage, then you take a car, then while you're a student, you accumulate student loans. Before you know it, you have a mountain of debt, okay? So this process is where we say enough. We're going to stop it there, and we're going to reverse this. Okay? Reverse this slowly, you know, shrink it down, back to 0, okay? So what you do is you take 4 columns, and you list all of it. First one is you list the payee, and I'm just going to give you a very simple example, the interest rate, the minimum payment, and then the balance. All right? So I'm going to just use a very simple example. Let's say this person has a visa on which they're paying 19%, 19.99%, which I think is the rate for Royal Bank right now. And let's say they have a $2,000, the minimum payment is $100, okay? And let's say they have a $2,000 balance, all right? Let's say they have a MasterCard, 18%, and the minimum payment is $100, and let's say that's also $2,000. Okay, let's say they have a car loan, 7%, and let's say the balance here is $20,000, and the minimum payment is $400, let's say, and let's say the balance here is $20,000. Okay, let me just give you an example. Now, everybody is different. So once you've called your creditors, renegotiated the thing down, you've rearranged them in descending order of interest rates, you put them down like this. The first condition is this, that you have to double, once you've listed them in descending order of interest rate, okay, you have to take the first minimum payment, the highest minimum payment, and double it. Okay? So in this case, let's say this is 100. you double it to 200. Okay? Right? Now the question is, where am I going to get the $100? You find it. Okay? You find it in your cash flow, right? You know, some things have to go, but you need to come up with it because we are going in a different direction here. Because if you're not committed to this, if you're not serious, it's not going to happen. Okay? So the minimum payment is 100. We're going to double it to 200. Whatever that minimum payment is, double it. Now, the second condition is that this bottom line, the total minimum payments throughout this whole reverse debt snowball process must not and cannot change. Okay? Otherwise, this will not work. So in this case, you've got 2, 3, plus 4. The total minimum payment is 700. Is 700. Okay? And that does not change throughout the process. Okay? So let's begin the process. We've got a balance of 2,000, and we're paying $200 a month in the first minimum payment, right? Roughly, if I owe $2,000, now, sorry, back up a little. First condition was, no, the very first condition is that you freeze all of these balances, okay? That means to say that you cannot add another dollar to any of these, okay? So if these are your debt instruments, if you've got credit card, revolving credit, like credit cards and lines of credit, okay, first thing you do is you take those credit cards and put an elastic around it, open your freezer, and stick it in there. Okay? If it's not in your back pocket, you can't use it. Now, the reason why we do that is because you haven't paid them off yet. So stick it in your freezer, literally, symbolically freeze it. Okay? If you've got checks where you can write ATM cards, cut them up, throw them away, it's very scary to do this because people who live on credit don't know, what am I going to do? I'm going to show you how you're going to, it's you know, you didn't start out with them. Okay, you don't, you know, you will live without them. You know, the world will not come to an end. And believe me, you might think the world would come to an end. It won't. Okay, so if you've got checks, lines of credit, tear them up. Okay, we're not going there, right? We're going to go in a different direction. So that's the first condition. The second condition is this, that you got to double this, and the third condition is this minimum payment, this total minimum payment, does not change throughout the process, okay? Even as things get paid off. So in this case, this fellow has $700 that's going towards debt. Now, just on that note, okay, the worst that I have seen, where I sat down with someone and we took all of their debt instruments, they were paying $3,300 a month in interest. $3,300, okay? Total payments were about $6,000. Half of it was going to interest. And this person was just going about, you know, with the head in the clouds as though, you know, hey, I'm making the income, so what's the problem? You know, I'm paying it. Here's what the problem is. $3,300 is like almost what? $38,000 a year. Can you not buy a brand new car every year for $38,000 and give away your 1-year-old used car to somebody who's needy, right? Versus giving away to these debtors. All right, $700, we begin the process. So I begin the process in the first month. I've got a balance of $2,000. I'm paying $200. Rough calculation, it's going to take me about 10 months, right? Rough calculation, but really not really, because I've got 20% interest to deal with. Now, if you're doing this at home, or if you're doing this, go on, just Google for amortization tables, okay, loan amortization tables, and you'll get a host of them. Find one that you're comfortable with. Just plug in your numbers, and it'll give you a spreadsheet, an amortization table, showing you what the declining balance is, okay, at every point in time. Now, what you will find there is if the interest rate is 200, and you're making a minimum payment, you're making 200, the balance is 2,000, it's not 10 months, probably 15, 16 months because of the interest factor, maybe even more. But I'm going to say 15 months, okay? I'm just going to factor the interest in simply. So instead of 10 months, let's say because of interest, this is 15 months. So in 15 months, right, this first line is gone, right? First, the visa is gone. Then what you do is that 200 that you were paying towards that visa, you add it to this one now. So this payment now becomes 300. Okay, because the bottom line does not change, right? Now, while I was paying, during those 15 months, while I was paying this, I was also paying my minimum payment on this. So I already paid $1,500 towards this $2,000 balance. So did it go down by $1,500? No, because there's 18% interest to deal with. So instead of going down by 1,500, let's factor interest in. Let's say 500 went towards interest. So this balance on its own went down to 1,000. Okay? So at the end of, in the 16th month when I begin this process, I'm starting with a balance of 1,000 and I'm paying $300. Okay? In theory, 100 divided by 1,000 divided in 3 months, this should be gone. But again, let's factor interest in. So instead of 3 months, let's say 6 months. Okay? So in 6 months, this is gone. So now I take the 300, add it to the 400. This payment now becomes 700. Okay? Now during those 21 months, when I was paying these two, I was also making a 400 payment on my car balance, right? So 21, that's 8,400 that I've paid towards my $20,000 balance. So did it go down by 8,400? Not really, because there's interest to factor in. So instead of going down by 8,400, again, roughly, okay, when you do it with an amortization table, you can do it more accurately. So let's say instead of 8,400, let's say it went down by 7,000. So on its own, this came down to 13,000, right? So now I'm paying $700 a month on a $13,000 balance. Now, my computer only goes to like 2 digits, so I have to use this. I was working with an 86-year-old once, client of mine, and she asked me to help her run some errands. So I said, sure, why not? You know, so we went shopping, if you will. So she would, you know, she has a hard time moving around, like mobility. At 86, mobility was a big issue for her. So she would, you know, we'll stop by a shop. She'll give me $20. Okay, get me that, right? So once I ran into the shop, Planet Organic. I ran into the shop. She told me 1 or 2 things. I got her the things. So I got back in the car, and I gave her the receipt and the change. 86-year-old, right? She took the receipt, and she was mentally calculating to see if the change was correct. I looked at her and I said, people half your age would pull out a calculator for... All right, so 13,000, we're paying $700. So in approximately 18, 19 months, in theory, it should be gone. But because of interest, instead of 19 months, I'm going to say 30 months, okay? So in 30 months, this is gone, okay? So for this individual, if this is his, you know, in this case, okay, 21 plus 30, 51 months, approximately 4.5 years, okay? This individual, if he stays focused with a single-mindedness, right, in 4.5 years, he's going to be completely consumer debt-free. Okay? Is it going to be easy? No. Okay? Because if you're used to instant gratification by using credit, you know, going the cash route is going to be very difficult. Okay? Because now you have to say no, right? Every time, you know, you don't have the money. If you want something, you got to save the money to get it. The trips have to wait. You know, you have to rearrange your vacation. It's no longer, you know, but you are purpose-driven here, okay? You want to be completely debt-free. You follow? But you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, depending on what your situation is, okay, it could take anywhere from 6 months to 10 years for you to do this. But what's the alternative? If you don't do this, what's going to happen? Remember I said, you know, that gap, chances are it's going to get worse over time, not better, because people don't, you know, very often they're hoping all these wrong things don't happen to them, but they do happen, okay? And the needs are going to get worse, not better. So if this individual does not do this, right, 4 years from now, my suspicion is he's going to be in a worse situation, okay? And it's not going to get better, and it's going to carry